Morning, y'all. I'm finally over COVID. Yay! So now I won't be rehashing old videos. We can make new ones. Sunlight right there. We finished talking about the world ocean because I thought that was kind of something that is interesting, and we didn't cover it last time. I kind of wish we would have, but time got away from me, and then all of a sudden it was like the end of the session. So I decided to finish up with North America because that's where we left off in the first session. We talked about North America, or we talked about United States and Canada a little bit. So then we talked about Central America the last week when I was sick, so I was just posting stuff. So I've been slacking on grading you guys' work because I had COVID, obviously, and then because of Christmas, Thanksgiving break, I also slacked over that because it's vacation time. So today I'll work on getting everything graded tonight and today as the day progresses, so you guys will all know how you're doing. Yeah, so that's that, I guess. And I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving break. We're going to move on to South America, where today we'll do kind of a quick little summary, just a short PowerPoint, where I talk about South America, obviously. And then as the week goes on, we'll talk about different aspects of study of human geography in Central America, and then we'll kind of maybe cover a few countries that I feel like covering, I guess. And then we'll probably do a PowerPoint assignment where I have you guys make a PowerPoint about your own South American country that you can pick, and then you'll have to include some facts and stuff in there that you can pull off the internet. So that's probably what we'll be doing this week. So yeah, with no further ado, I will now share the screen and we'll go over this short PowerPoint. We'll give you some questions to answer, and then I'll get to work on grading stuff. So let me just remember how to do this because I apparently forget every day. South America. I recently edited this PowerPoint and took a bunch of pictures off because I was trying to print it and I didn't want to use a bunch of colored ink. So I apologize on how boring it looks. I'll fix it again for the next class. So sorry, you guys. Anyways, South America, our next continent of study. The objectives of this lesson and us learning about South America. I want you guys to be able to identify the continent of South America on a map. I want you to identify where the name America came from, because it's smart to know the origin of words, and it's also fascinating. And we're going to identify 3 regions where ancient societies flourished within South America, sorry. That's what we'll be doing in this lesson. Analyze ancient cultures important to South American history, because I think history is cool. That's what I have my degree in. Examine the unique religious environment in South America. They do have indeed quite a unique religious environment. It's cool. So that's what we'll talk about. I think it's interesting stuff. So a map of South America. South America is a continent. It is one of the 7 continents, and it is full of countries. These countries, Brazil's the largest, most populated one. Some other ones: Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Guyana, Suriname, I think. I don't know how to pronounce that one, to be totally honest with you. French Guiana. So there's a whole bunch. The Galapagos Islands, where Darwin came up with the theory of evolution. Quite a fascinating place. So South America is the 4th largest continent. The Gulf of Darien in the northwest. That would be this little area here, the Gulf of Darien. And to the Tierra del Fuego archipelago in the south. The Tierra del Fuego archipelago is a group of islands off the coast of southern Chile. Cool stuff. So that is South America, this beautiful continent. Used to fit right there in Africa, you can see. Back when it was Pangaea. So why is it called South America? Well, South America and North America are named after this Italian fella named Amerigo Vespucci. He was the first European to suggest that the Americas were not part of Asia, the East Indies, what they called them then, but an entirely separate landmass. So good old Amerigo Vespucci. So America is, it comes from Amerigo. That's the root of the word. So the nations of South America, I listed them earlier off that map, so I really don't necessarily feel the need to do it again. I might have missed a couple. They're all equally important and awesome and fascinating. I think that South America has a super cool and rich history, and there are a ton of cool books I can recommend anyone who wants to learn about South America and their history. Nearly all of the countries have Spanish as their national language, with the exception of Brazil and French Guiana. Brazil, they speak Portuguese, and in French Guiana, as you would imagine, they speak French. There's also the Falkland Islands, where I believe that they make them English is the main language because it's owned by the United Kingdoms. And Argentina contests their claims for it. They fought a couple wars over it. Argentina thinks they belong to them. Great Britain disagrees. So the roots of South American heritage. South America's human landscape, meaning their human population, is deeply influenced by their indigenous populations and their connection to their physical environments. That is true in North America, that we are connected to our physical environment, but as many of you probably know, the indigenous population of North America is not super influential anymore, but nonetheless, they have influenced our development. In South America, their indigenous populations are greater, they're larger, and so they have a larger effect on their countries, just because there's more numbers. So these deep relationships continue to flourish on the continent through celebration, religion, and political action, and conflict. I didn't mention that. Oh yeah, actually I do mention that in the next one. Much like their North American counterparts, there's also conflict between native populations and their governments. In South America, many native peoples undergo discrimination, much like native people do here in the States. Let's check this time on this video. We're at 9 minutes. All right. I gotta rush through this stuff. We'll make it quick, but I want to get through this. So here we go. Indigenous populations. Let's get that laser pointer out. Chile's at 10%, pretty good. 11%, I mean. Nicaragua, 8.9%. Mexico, 15%. Panama, 12%. So anytime you have a population percentile that's greater than 10%, it's a pretty large population in your country, and they're gonna have effects on how things go. And as you can see, there are a couple here. Bolivia, 62% of their population is Native American, native to Bolivia. And Guatemala, 41% is native. So they got some pretty hardcore native populations. They're quite large. Relationships between the governments and the native peoples vary for every country. Every country has its own laws and rules, and so they interact separately with these native peoples. Bolivia recently elected a indigenous president in the early 2000s, but he was recently deposed in a coup, so he is no longer the president. In any case, so the historic cultures of South America developed in connection with their distinct regional landscapes. And there are three principal regions in the South America: the Pacific coast, which is suited to fishing and trading societies. That's where most of the people live nowadays, is on the coastlines. The major rivers of the Amazon basin, so that would be the Amazon River, essentially, and the rivers that feed into the Amazon River. And then lastly, the Andes Mountains, which would have been where the Inca people lived, and they lived in the mountainous regions. And so everyone in these, so the life in these three areas would be pretty different depending on which area you lived in. The first one we're going to talk about is the Incan Empire. The Incan Empire is historic, but certainly not yet ancient. If you guys have ever heard of Machu Picchu, Machu Picchu is 900 years younger than the Tower of London. So the Incan Empire is not ancient. It is relatively modern, if you want to think of it that way. It existed at about the same time as the Americas were being discovered. So it would have been not that long ago. Over a period of 100 years, the Incan Empire expanded to include most of Western South America. So basically all the way up here to down here. That is how long it went. The Inca Road is a huge road that connected all of it, and that is the Andes Mountain region. So they built that massive network of roads. Definitely the most impressive feat of the Incan civilization was their way to connect with each other through they would carve these roads through these intense mountain paths. They had two north-south roads, one running along the Pacific coast, and another one went straight through the mountains. And there was a lot of small roads in between. They kind of built forts along it to make it a big highway. So that road is what allowed the Incas to be so large and powerful. There are no other grand indigenous civilizations that exist in South America just because of their geography. The Incan mountain area was conducive to having a large civilization, but the jungles and unpassable terrain of many of the other areas of South America made it so it was really hard to establish a large empire. So they would exist in small hunter-gatherer societies, similar to those that you would find in the United States. Even though the United States did have its own large native empires, they also had small nomadic ones. Other tribes were not nomadic, but they never really did do the grand infrastructure that the Inca Empire was able to establish. They didn't build huge temples. They didn't build huge roads. They just kind of stayed in one spot and made stuff out of wood. And so we can't remember much. We can't find much of it nowadays. Also, the jungle is hard to keep ruins in compared to like something like the desert. But in any case, let's see, how far are we? Okay, we just got a couple more to go through. So stick with me, guys. I'm sorry this got so long. Slavery changes South America forever. So the importation of slaves represents a major shift in the culture of South America. Most slaves that were brought to South America were brought to Brazil. And the unique cultural practices of slaves were integrated with indigenous Indian beliefs as well as European rituals, which makes for the cool religion that they've got down in South America. It's a unique blend of African religions, indigenous religions, and then the Catholicism of Europe and they kind of all mix together to make these cool religions down there that are pretty neat. And many South American countries possess large populations of mulatto people. Mulatto people are mixed African and European descent. The mix of Christian, African, and Native religious customs was that unique stuff I talked about. One of them is candomblé, I think is how you say that. For example, that is Brazilian. So it's Portuguese mixed with African beliefs. So that's a cool religion. Some other stuff, South American cowboys. South America developed a cowboy culture that is they're called gauchos instead of cowboys, but they still have a really large and popular gaucho tradition in many South American countries. They're praised for being just like cowboys from our area, free-spirited. So gaucho culture still persists today in Argentina and Uruguay. They're really into like rodeo and that kind of stuff like that. So that's just the intro. Sorry it took so long, you guys. We will pick up where we left off tomorrow, and we will kind of continue to go into South America. So thanks y'all for watching, and have a good day.